I'm laughing. Just kidding. I'm like, okay, hello everyone. We are live. Oh my gosh, I have the giggles. I want to know. I think it has something to do with you, Valerie. But it is this week, and it's like, okay, here we are again. And so I'm Nancy Rebecca, and I'm so excited to have Valerie on today because Valerie, I've kind of titled my talk with her, This Life Giving Path. Because, and I see two people have come on. So if you can just mention in the comment section so I know for sure that you can hear us loud and clear. Valerie actually did the Psychic Mastery 1 program when? When did you?
I started actually just 2 years ago, so April of 2020.
Yeah,
hmm
right when COVID hit.
Yes, right after that had happened, and also I had just decided to quit my job, and there was a few other major life shifts that kind of launched me into the decision. So yes.
So you took Psychic Mastery 1, and then you completed Psychic Mastery 1, and then you did Psychic Mastery 2, or what we call Psychic Mastery 2 now, but when you were in it, it was called Psychic Mastery International. And that's a professional psychic development program where you actually learned how to do professional readings on another person. You had to do readings all year long. And now you've graduated that program, and then you are in Psychic Mastery 3, which is our advanced graduate student program as well. So you're the one that's been in all three, and you've got a website, and you are working as a professional psychic, and it's like, wow, you've got a lot to share. So
23 years.
yeah. So just kind of, yeah, let us know a little bit about your life. As you said, how old you are, what kind of work do you do now, if you're still kind of supplementing that as you build your reading business, and what inspired you to join Psychic Mastery One?
Yeah, so I'm 35 years old and I live in Seattle, Washington, and I work part-time now. I've kind of been paring my hours down as I'm just realizing how much energy it takes to do readings
Mhm.
professionally. I'm like, no, I can't work more than 20 hours a week, especially because I work with kids. And so the
Okay.
lots of high vibe, great energy, but for a sensitive person like myself, it can be a lot to have kind of a wall of children's energy and cacophony of sound coming at you all the time. So I work in a Spanish language immersion preschool and after school program, and I get to hang out with kids, which is awesome. And that
Do
was
you
part of
speak Spanish?
I do.
Oh my gosh, you're going to have to connect with Yvonne because for 2 years she's been taking Spanish classes. And so I always think it'd be fun to do some conversational Spanish. But anyway,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so that was just part of this big change that I had since in 20 beginning of 2020. Really, I decided to leave my job right before the pandemic hit, and was kind of going to take some time unemployed and figure out, what I wanted to shift to doing, because I was in program management and grant management, city planning, all this stuff, and it was just it was really hard for me, and I later realized. It wasn't sparking joy anymore. And then I, about a year ago, was diagnosed with ADHD. And so I realized, like, oh, that's why this has been so hard. Like, drug myself through grad school, drug myself, it was like kind of pushed myself to achieve in the ways that I felt like I wasn't able to as a younger person, as a child, and kind
mhm.
of, I think, was proving to myself that I could. And then got to that place where I just realized, like, oh, I don't, this is not, I'm not thriving. I was really
Yeah.
stressed.
Yeah, your
Uh,
learning style was quite different. So as a child, what were those challenges that you had the ADD that was undiagnosed until you were an adult?
yeah, yeah. So I'm the predominantly inattentive type, which is often kind of flies under the radar in terms of diagnosis. A lot of uh, especially women tend to be more kind of that inattentive daydreamer, just always like in class, staring out the window, daydreaming. And it also has to do also with your kind of like your inner kind of like what sparks interest or joy for you. And so it has to be an inner motivation that drives you to be able to maintain
Mm-hmm.
focus.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I had been meditating maybe a year and a half prior to being exposed to your teachings, Nancy, and it was really like pulling teeth. I just was trying to like sit and do, like think of like to clear my mind, which is almost impossible. And then actually I got exposed to your teachings kind of like, well, by happenstance, but really, spirit led me. I was just made a comment about my therapist's new couch, and she was like, oh yeah, it's longer so that I can do hypnotherapy and energy work on people. And I was like, I didn't know you did those things. And it turns out she's a graduate of your PM2 course.
Oh,
Yeah. So she was like, oh, and so I just started watching your free talks, and I did that for maybe about 5 months, end of 2019 into 2020, and then just decided that I was getting so much out of it that really even just the basic tools that I had learned with grounding and running my energy helped me through what was a really rough first few months of 2020. And I remember at one point just sitting, and I had been crying pretty hard, and I was sitting in meditation trying to kind of calm my body down. And I just started to feel my body like rocking side to side. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like that is not, I like tried to stop it. I was like doing little experiments. And eventually it was just like and then I had a knowingness, which I now know is my predominant intuitive style, that it was my spirit like kind of like rocking me and comforting me and helping me through and just helping me to not feel alone. And so then I was kind of like, okay, I'm having experiences now that I can't deny, and that only continued to happen throughout Psychic Mastery 1, which when I first started listening to your talks at the end of 2019, I had been atheist, then agnostic. I mean, I was raised religious,
wow.
away from that at a pretty young age, and so I hadn't really thought about spirituality for many, many years for myself. And so it was something that there was little hints maybe in the years up to it, kind of asking me to evaluate what I did actually believe in. But then once the time was right, it was like I was ready to kind of to shift pretty rapidly. And
Well, and I like that what you said, because that's the thing about the Psychic Mastery program. It's not a religious program. It's a spiritual program, and you're the one that's encouraged to identify your own relationship with your higher self, the God of your heart, your own energy system. And I love that you mentioned that yeah, you get to arrive at it's not being influenced by us in the program.
yeah, and that was huge for me. And then also just your emphasis on, having your own inner authority, and really ultimately you teach us the tools, and then you always encourage us to ask our higher self, or if it's what your higher self or your spirit wants to do when you're going through and you're using a technique. If spirit changes it up on you, like that's okay. So it's just it's a really nice approach that feels like yeah, like it's not trying to be dogmatic at all. It's just giving you kind of the tools to unblock and connect more closely
Mhm.
with your own
Mhm.
knowingness, and your own gifts and abilities that we all have. We just
Mhm.
haven't kind of dusted them off
Mhm.
maybe in many lifetimes. So yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to mention that rocking piece, because I do remember when that was a question that you asked. It's
Yeah.
like every time I meditate, I rock. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's your spirit. But an occupational therapist student of mine brought me in to work with kids who are autistic,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted me to observe their energy field as they were working with them. It was super cool because, they're way out of their bodies, but as they get grounded through play, they get grounded into their body, that they calm down. But when their spirit leaves, that's when they're kind of all over, and then they calm down. So did you notice that with your ADD?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. Since getting that diagnosis about a year ago, it's been really interesting to kind of just bring more awareness to it. And also, of course, kind of release a lot of outdated negative perceptions I had about it, a lot of stuck kind of energy around, feeling lazy or stupid and, like not really understanding why my body doesn't and my brain doesn't seem to want to work in the way that society kind of demands. But yeah, just the calm that I find when I drop into a trance, I mean, especially when I go into trance, but even when I'm just in a good deep meditation after I sit for maybe it's about around 15 minutes, really, it's unlike anything else that I experience, and it's been deeply healing and just a really beautiful kind of new space for me to be in.
Awesome.
But along with that, also, it's still difficult. Like there's still days where I'm just learning to,
It's still difficult.
yeah, and I'm just learning to kind of like ebb and flow a little bit more and just realize that when my body is like, no, there's no way we're sitting for more than like 10, 15 minutes of meditation. I'm like, okay, so that probably means I'm integrating something, especially as I'm starting to see more and more clients and I've been in a year and 2 years and counting of this intensive work. So it's like there are just kind of little seasons of time that have passed through where it's like, okay, I'm in an integration phase and that's fine. Or even my menstrual cycle, it's like I'm realizing ADHD is heightened. It's harder to concentrate.
World, everything is heightened during the cycle.
And so it's like that's a time that I've now started reserving for my own healing, and I'm not doing readings on other people kind of around those few days. So it's just kind of like coming to a place of learning how to work with the ADHD and learning to really honor and listen to my body. And I know that you're big on kind of building that relationship.
Yes, but that's something we really emphasize. That relationship with your body.
Yeah. So that's been huge for me. And it's just like softening my approach to my own practice, and really just holding a lot of space for allowing whatever is there to be there. And that might be just running my energy.
Just running your energy. That's exactly right. You're just running your energy. So now let's kind of make this leap to Psychic Mastery 2, which is going to be its new name. Because I'm I wouldn't say redesigning, but it needs a techie upgrade, because the other system is just not up to par with the new technology that we have. But it's been kind of nice for me to take a year off because I've been teaching professional psychic development to students since 2007. Every single year since 2007. So it's been really nice, but I can tell you, I hunger to get back into that more intense practice and really watching you grow and blossom in that, and then watch you take it to the next level and become a professional psychic. So what made you make that decision to just head right into that program?
It was a really hard decision. There was a few different things. Like I was asking spirit for signs. I was of course using my brain and trying to follow my intuition, but it felt like such a big leap. And I was like, I don't want to be a professional psychic. I don't know if this is the right approach for me. Like I was definitely not considering any sort of like career path along these lines. I mean, that was, I didn't, I was still very much doubting like my own abilities in some ways as having been such a skeptic for such a long time. And so all of this was still very new to me. And I was about like 8 months into the PM1 when I made the switch to PM2 because of the way the timing worked out. So I asked spirit for some signs, and on the last day I asked to see 3 owls before a certain day, like a deadline.
3 owls, that was going to be your sign. Wow.
You can do it, whatever. So I was out on a walk. It was the last day of the deadline that I imposed. It was the last day to enroll. And I I saw 2 carved owls in like wood that I had never noticed before. And I was like, okay, I'll count those if I see a third owl. Like, let's see if that happens. Cause it wasn't common, during the day.
No, it isn't.
So I'm walking on my way back. I'm almost off like the walking path. I was living with my sister in Iowa, actually helping with childcare at this time. So I was lots of life changes. And I was like, okay, I'm just almost home. I guess it didn't happen. Like, I don't know. And then I hear this hooting and I'm like, what? I like turned around. It turns out I had walked past an owl, and then the owl decided to hoot one time so that it like that I had missed it. So that was pretty awesome.
It's really awesome.
And then, as if that wasn't enough, like my dad had kind of like it ended up being nothing but a health scare that day. And it just made me feel like I was like, can I give you a rose reading? It was like, so I gave him a rose reading, but I was just feeling like, I want to know how to like really do this, like I want to know as much as I can know to help support the people in my life who I love. Like I don't, So it was like Spirit was just very much making sure that I got on board, and I'm so glad I did. I mean, just I had kind of heard in my inner voice actually one time during that past year, and I heard I should be a healer, and I thought, wow. And it was I think it's really the only time, even up until now, where it sounded like I was just minding my own business, like looking out the window or something. And all of a sudden I just heard I should be a healer. And I was like, I knew it was my spirit. And I was just like, whoa, like that came out of nowhere. It definitely wasn't me, so.
Yeah, because that's the thing again, I share with you before you come on today, it's like, I don't want you to promote Psychic Mastery 1. I want you to share it. Same with Pat when she said, I know you told us not to promote it, but I just have to say this because it is intense work. And then when you go into Psychic Mastery 2, it's like, whoa, it's really intense. And then you're working. That starts in January, so that the new Psychic Mastery 2 will start in January of 2023. So what was that growth like for you?
I mean, it was going from, like I said, still holding a decent amount of doubt about my own abilities, and going from really entering it with the intention of just continuing to heal myself, being able to help out family and friends, to, I don't even know when it happened where I was like, I think this is actually what I want to do for a living. But just, yeah, like you had us jump in pretty early. I think it was in March. So like the 3rd month where we got partners for the month where we were trading rose readings with them. Was it every week? I can't even remember. It's like a blur now. Every week. Yeah. So it's at least three or 4 times a month. Right. And from those early days of doing those rose readings and just feeling kind of like, okay, like here's what I'm seeing, to now having worked with so many people over the course of that year, doing full readings and like really doing a bunch of different types of techniques also on our learning calls. Like you just get to the point where you can't deny that you're receiving information. And for me, it feels like sometimes it's just like my daydream state, but it's that focused intention that I trust. It's like sometimes every once in a while, I'll kind of be drifting off a little bit too much, and I'll be like, oh, that's like a blue horse. Like, I don't think that's not related. That's just my mind going in several directions at the same time. Right. But yeah,
it's always significant. That's what I always say. Anything you get is always significant. It just might not be in the immediate moment. It might be significant for next week or later on. Yeah.
Right. So then it's always just checking in with Spirit, like, okay, like what's going on here? Like, help me clear up and get back to focusing, and what is the symbol that wants to come through or whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
Now, and I talk about, one of the major things that I help people with is moving through paralyzing doubt that can block you from trusting your own intuitive instincts and block you from taking action. So if you think about before you started Psychic Mastery 1 and how you made decisions, and then now how quickly do your decisions come to you? what's the difference, or what's the doubt level? Has it disappeared, or is it a quiet voice, or it still pop up loudly once in a while?
It's pretty low in the background these days. I mean, I have definitely, that's probably the biggest, I mean, other than like the entire way that it's reshaped my life and my profession, the biggest, like on a personal level, just that ability to ask my higher self, or even sometimes it's like I don't have to sit in meditation and ask my higher self. I'm just so much more connected on a day-to-day, like
Yeah.
moment to moment basis, where I just feel confident in trusting my like gut instinct, if you will. So it's like
Yeah.
I'll just go with whatever I want, and I'm much clearer on what it is that I want. I did used to be a fairly indecisive person and would struggle with kind of like the analysis paralysis, kind of thing. And for the most part now in my life, I am much, much more comfortable just kind of standing in my own decisions. And I think my friends probably would say that they've noticed I really don't ask for advice anymore. I just share about my life, which is awesome.
It is awesome. Okay, I've got two major things that I'm going to talk about. And so before we start to wrap up, we have about 10 minutes.
Yep.
You've got crazy manifestation skills. I mean, you really, when you put your mind to it and you decide what it is that you want. So can you share with everybody? I mean, it just, even in the class, like it just blew us away when it came to manifesting where you live.
Yeah. So you did a reading for me, I think in May of 2020, like right when I had first started PM1, and you told me in that recording, because I listened to it since, and you told me that I was really like strong at manifesting when I'm in my like joy and kind of in that mode. But when I'm in serious mode, it's like nothing's going to come through. So shifting towards joy has been a big part of my journey too. But anyway, I didn't really believe you. I was just kind of like, I don't know, like, okay, I don't know what that means. And I'd never really tried manifesting before. And so, we learned that technique in PM2, and I thought it was really cool, and I was curious to just like, let's try it out and see what happens. So I was trying to manifest. Actually, a classmate did a reading on me, a rose reading at one point, and they were like, you're trying to manifest like 8 things right now, and your spirit's saying like they can't all come through at the same time, or it's going to be like totally upend your life. Like, you don't want that. Your body doesn't want that. Like, calm down.
Nice.
So basically, yeah. So I was like, okay. So I really want to manifest. Like I was seeking a new living situation that was a longer term, potential. And I needed a new job because I had a temporary job with like a youth summer program that was ending at the end of this summer of 2021. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to focus on those 2. I did the unblocking work, went through the steps that you taught us. And I did have my moments where like in looking for an apartment, I remember there was only one day I scrolled in Craigslist a little bit, and then I was like, this is not yielding anything. And I just had a feeling it would come to me. And I was like, but that's crazy. Like, I've heard stories like that, but I don't know. Like, and so I went on this walk, and it started pouring rain. And I was just walking around in the neighborhood where I thought I had wanted to live. And I was like writing down like apartment complex number, it was like, and then I got home and I was like, okay, that is not going to be the way either. Like, clearly it was cold. It was pouring down rain. Like, the universe is not saying like yes to this way of trying to figure it out, which is my like big ancestral wounding piece I've been working on. So anyway, I was like, I'm just going to give it a few more days. And in the meantime, I had a job that actually did come through after a quick Google search just for like Spanish immersion school. Like and then it was like, bing, the first thing. And then it was the perfect timing to join their team. And so that was coming through. And then
you described exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. You had been living with roommates, and you wanted to live on your own.
Yep.
But rent is expensive in Seattle.
Yeah, Spirit was like
a little garden. I mean, it was.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wanted my backyard cottage and I had this whole like long list of requirements. And I was at dinner with a friend, and we were supposed to have had the dinner night the night before, but it got canceled. And so it was the next night. And I think that was, I know it was divine timing too, because we ended up, I was just telling her, they were like, oh yeah, what's up with you? Have you found your place to live? And I was like, no, I haven't found my backyard cottage yet. Like I'm really trying to hold out and wait for something to come through. And her eyes lit up and she's like, oh my gosh, like I just saw this post on Instagram for this beautiful backyard cottage. And, I think it's in the neighborhood you're interested in. And it turns out it's with this beautiful person who lives in the main house, who's a very kindred spirit. And we just hit it off immediately. And I reached out, even though it was a little bit more pricey than I thought I could afford. It was all these things kind of, oh, they only want to rent it month to month, And then I proceeded with it anyways, and it worked out wonderfully. So yeah, it was totally an exercise. And just kind of after that one day of kind of walking around, I was like, I'm just going to let it sit. I'm going to trust that something's going to come through. And
so well, it was awesome. And so she always kept us on our toes that year, because she would just, okay, I'm going to try to manifest this, and then boom, it would happen, and it would happen, and it happened. So we were like, oh my God, we need to do this again. Even for me, I hadn't used that technique in a long time. However, okay, the other thing I want to talk to you about is when you first started, you had some friends that were not quite sure about what you were doing, and you kind of had a relationship that kind of ended because they just couldn't kind of figure out how to be in relationship with you having these abilities and how to wrap their mind around it. So how are you doing now, kind of coming out of the closet, keeping your head out of the closet, speaking up more? How's that working for you?
Yeah, I mean, I came out as a psychic just a couple months ago on my social, so that was exciting. And I remember it was funny, Nancy, like with that relationship ending, and then I think you had said something to me on one of our group calls about how I basically wouldn't be able to find another romantic partner until the end of the PM2 program anyway, because it was just like I was shifting so quickly. And you were right. But I did actually meet someone in January. So it was like right after the program ended.
Oh, nice.
And he's like totally, he's an avid student who's already kind of, he was ready. He was looking for something, and now he's totally on board, very supportive. And he's actually like following your work now. So might be one of your
wonderful. Oh, see, your spirit just manifested that one too.
Yeah, well, that was on my list for sure. I had a lot of requirements too, and he seems to have met all them. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, we just have a couple more minutes, but you are doing professional readings. Your readings are beautiful. What I love, you're just clear and precise and clean. And are you having fun getting paid to do readings? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to get adjusted to kind of like feeling the weight of that expectation, and kind of the financial exchange and that kind of thing. But every time I meet with someone, and I've been meeting with more people who, are referred to me through others, and that just, I know nothing about them. And, like I did a couple past life readings on someone the other day, and it just touched them so deeply. And it was just incredible. I mean, still every time I do a reading, and I just see the impact that it has on the person, in that moment, and then in the weeks or months following, and they come back to me and say, I've really, something that you said in that reading has really just been stuck in my mind, and it's been a great source of strength for me, or whatever it is, just helping people to lighten their load a little bit and release outdated energy. It's just such a
heart-touching, isn't it?
Exactly.
It is the best. I say it's the best job in the whole world.
Yeah, I love
spiritually connect with someone all day long, every week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel I'm so grateful. I'm so glad that I took kind of the leap of faith that I did, especially with joining PM2. That was a really big. I mean, the signs obviously, helped push me over the edge there. I was kind of leaning towards doing it anyway, but I was like, I really would like these signs to come through. And, but yeah, like I'm glad that I took that leap, because I just feel like that it has, it has shifted my life in every way, in such a beautiful way. And now I'm just in that kind of flow state, it's like, instead of trying to figure things out in my life, I'm just flowing, and it's just such a more,
and you have a little bit more confidence. If I really
yeah.
want something, I have the capacity to manifest anything I want. I mean, how empowering is that?
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's just so fun to live in like a little magical world now too. Like it's so much more enjoyable when you think about like fairies and dragons and stuff.
Isn't that the truth? All right,
Yeah.
I have just one more thing that I want to say, because I'm always trying to, this whole week, I say you're not just joining a program, you're joining a community. So just talk about your community connections that you've made in Intuitive Minds community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has been, especially just like going through the PM2 program, you do have your group of people that you end up, being closer with, and, there you have your certain people that I still text, or have phone calls with, to just kind of trade notes and check in and support each other, with taking big steps like launching our own business and that kind of thing. But even just, like the mentoring Mondays, which I unfortunately don't get to join that often, but our monthly group calls in PM3 now, again, it's just nice to have that space where people can share and connect, and having the opportunity to read and be read by others during our monthly learning calls in PM3.
Mm-hmm.
Is a great way of also expanding that community and getting to know more folks who have been doing this for many, many years, which is exciting and cool to just kind of see, what that can look like. And it's really encouraging. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's the thing. We do have a lot of well-seasoned, very experienced readers, but all you new ones that come in, you're just such a breath of fresh air, and you just breathe such new life, and we all get to reach for those higher bars, because if you've been following, you'll hear some of my stories about, my husband divorced me and he tried to take my kids away from me. And like, those were the challenges that I had about having to kind of speak up about, I'm having experiences that I can't deny. I can't explain them, but I can't deny that they're not real on some level. Where you are, it's a little bit easier. I wouldn't say 100% easier, but it's a little bit easier for you. And so, for you to come in and remember, it's like, okay, there's a lot of people been holding that space for 40, 50, 60 years for me to come through, for the young people to come through. And then it's so fun when I was working with you, because the way you see the world is just such a different and cool way. So anyway, it's wonderful to have you as a student, wonderful to have you as a graduate, wonderful to watch you grow your psychic business. And one of these days, just as COVID just wraps up a little bit more, it's going to be a lot more fun to get together and to just, I know that we will be in each other's lives for the rest of our life. So.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Nancy.
You're welcome, Valerie. All right. Thank you, everyone. We had 18 people listening to the call. We have lots of comments. So I would love it if you will go back after this and respond to the comments. Would you also include your website in case anyone wants to have a reading with you?
I'd love
that. That would be wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So you just stay on. I'm going to end the broadcast. You stay on for just a minute so we can chat. All right. Thanks again, Valerie.
Thank you.